All right, I'll admit this video is just as much for me as it is for you guys because this transfer season has been by far the craziest we have had yet. And obviously, the transfer portal is a topic of discussion all throughout NCAA athletics. And for us wrestling fans, we know just how much this has changed the sport. And I'm getting into a couple things. One, I'm just going to get into all the high impact transfers, and there's a ton of them. And I'm also going to mention the major team ramifications. And the reason I'm doing this video is because I was talking with someone, I think I was talking about Michigan. I was like, oh yeah, Michigan, you kind of, in years past, I would be able to do a kind of a quick inventory of who they've got, how they're going to be next year. And I'm going through Michigan. I'm like, oh yeah, they need someone at 149. And then I'm like, wait, didn't they get someone? Oh yeah, they got Lachlan McNeil, a multiple All-American from UNC. And then I started thinking about, wait, I thought he went here. And then I realized I had forgotten a lot. So now I'm going to refresh my memory and hopefully help you realize just how much and how many different teams have landed some really impactful transfers. So starting with the teams that had like almost a total overhaul, not a total, but brought in almost completely new rosters. And starting with Oklahoma State, bringing in 4 huge transfers: Alex Facundo, Richard Figueroa, Casey Swiderski, and Zach Ryder. These are 4 blue chip recruits coming out of high school. Varying levels of success collegiately. You've got a national champion in Figueroa. You've got an All-American in Swiderski. You've got a guy in Zach Ryder with 4 years of eligibility, and who knows how good, how great he is going to be. But right now, the early returns are Zach Ryder's going to be really good. He didn't lose at all in redshirt. He won the Southern Scuffle. He's going to be good. And then, of course, Alex Facundo. We've seen what he could do on the freestyle stage. We saw what he did 2 years ago when he was the starter for Penn State, ranked in the top 8 or 9 most of his season before failing to place last year. So big change for Oklahoma State. Also big change, another Big 12 school, Iowa State. They brought in Steve O'Poulin and Vinny Zerbin, 2 guys from Northern Colorado at 125 and 157 respectively, both All-Americans, both really, really tough and potential weights of need for the Cyclones. And of course, these guys were late to enter the portal because Troy Nickerson went from Northern Colorado to Army, and you're allowed to enter the transfer portal after the portal closes if your coach leaves, and they did, and so they left. They're going to Iowa State. 2 great pickups there. They also added Isaac Dean from Ryder. If you haven't watched this guy, extremely tough, very hard guy to take down, and I think he's going to fit well at Iowa State, as will Rocky Elam, Zach's brother, going at 197. This is a guy who has been in the title contending mix for years, and a lot of people think this guy can make the finals next year for Iowa State. Not to mention the fact that when you think about Iowa State, they got the Frost brothers still. They've got Anthony Echemendia coming back from injury. They've got Younger Bastida coming back from injury. This Connor Uten coming back from injury. Iowa State can be really good, and these transfers take them from being a top 10-ish team to a team that can bring home a trophy yet again. Iowa, ton of transfers. Dean Peterson from Rutgers to Iowa, 125. Nasir Bailey and Jordan Williams from Little Rock to Iowa. Nasir was at 33. He's thought to be a 141, or he could redshirt this year with Drake Ayala coming into his senior year. Jordan Williams, 149. He got in trouble already. Hasn't even signed with Iowa, so maybe he doesn't even wind up wrestling for the Hawks. Well, that remains to be seen at this point. But they also have Sammy Alvarez, who placed last year for Ryder, trying to get in. Now, he's a little uncertainty there for Sammy is his final year is not yet approved. He believes it will be, but until that's signed, until that's official, Sammy Alvarez is not an Iowa Hawkeye, though he has already committed. Then you've also got Moen Dean at 197 for the Hawks. But remember, Iowa added Ja'Cory Teamer and Stephen Buchanan very, very late, like September, August. So changes can still go down here. And then you have Oklahoma, another team with major transfer overhaul, bringing in Ohio's Peyton Keller. This guy was an All-American, stud, very good from the top position. Rafael Hipolito. This guy was the 4 seed at NCAA for Virginia Tech, now headed to Oklahoma. Those two will be 57-65 in some form or fashion. Jack Joffrey, very tough guy, and Brian Soldano from Rutgers to Oklahoma. Now, I'm going to go kind of weight by weight the highlights and all the major transfers that have switched their teams. Starting at 125, I already mentioned Richard Figueroa and Steve O'Poulin They've already transferred, but let's talk about Jory Volk, Wyoming to Minnesota. This is a big blow to Wyoming. Huge benefit for Volk going back to Minnesota where he is originally from. This guy is really, really tough, beating just about everyone. Junior world accolades. This guy's kind of done it all. He is certainly someone that could wrestle and place in the top 4 at the NCAA tournament next year. You got Cooper Flynn from Minnesota to Chattanooga. You've got Spencer Moore from North Carolina to Illinois. And you've got Louis Gill, NC State to West Virginia. These are all impact guys. NCAA qualifiers, I would say probably at a minimum expectations. Certainly All-American caliber at 125. 33, the only guy, the big impact guy that I've got here is Nasir Bailey. Already talked about him from Little Rock to Iowa. 141, Chris Cannon in the portal yet again. I don't know if it's the third time, the fourth time, whatever. He's going to Minnesota to finish out his career. Was at Northwestern, was at Michigan before that, and was at Northwestern before that. So it's been quite a Big Ten-filled trip for Chris Cannon. Then you go to 149. This is maybe the team, as I scroll my document here, the weight that has had the most impact guys in the portal. Already talked about Lachlan McNeil, North Carolina to Michigan. Ethan Stiles, haven't mentioned him yet. Placed as a freshman for Oregon State. Went in the portal, now going to Ohio State where he will have 4 years, or three years remaining eligibility. Ethan Stiles, incredible potential. Could be a title contender this year. Then you got Casey Swiderski and Sammy Alvarez. Already mentioned them. Chance Lamer from Cal Poly to Nebraska. Nebraska needed a 149 after Ridge Lovett graduated. Lamer's an impact guy. He's been in the top 8 in his career in the rankings. He's never finished on the podium. And Nebraska going to try to get him on the podium at 149 this year. Talked about Jordan Williams, Little Rock to Iowa. Willie McDougald, Oklahoma to West Virginia. Caleb Rachi from Iowa to UNI. With all those transfers coming in, Rachi has left. I think he's going to do really, really well with Coach Schwab in Northern Iowa. And Jack Joffrey, already mentioned, and David Evans. This is a guy who maybe is, if you remember Terrell Barraclaw, he transferred from Penn State to Utah Valley, and everyone said Terrell is a guy. If he was the starter, not behind someone like Mitchell Messenbring, he could be an All-American. And guess what? He goes to Utah Valley, ends up an All-American. David Evans going to try to do the exact same thing, going from Penn State to Utah Valley for what I believe is his last year of eligibility. Already talked about Zerbin and Keller. Ethan Miller, the number 1 seed at the Big Ten Championships, going from Maryland to Virginia Tech. That's a big pickup for the Hokies who lost Hipolito. You throw in Ethan Miller. Pretty exciting addition there for the Hokies. Cody Chittum from Ohio State to Ohio, or from Iowa State to Ohio State, maybe. I'm not sure he's actually going to go there. The rumors are he may end up at Chattanooga. Still up in the air where Cody Chittum winds up, but definitely a great wrestler. And then you got Bryce Hepner, Ohio State to North Carolina. Couldn't break through the lineup for the Buckeyes, but I think he's going to do great things for North Carolina. Hepner, if you're around, why do I know that name? He's the guy that beat Carson Hartzler in the wrestle-off a couple years ago, got his name on the map, and now he's likely going to be the starter at, I would guess, 165 for North Carolina, but maybe he goes down to 157. Talked about Facundo. Max Mayfield from Northwestern to Missouri. He's going to do a good job for the Tigers, who I think are going to have a sneaky good team next year. Zach Ryder, talked about him going from Penn State to Oklahoma State. Lenny Pinto leaves Nebraska, going to Rutgers, back east towards where he's from. Going to be with Mikey Labriola, his former training partner. Looking forward to see what Lenny can do there. Rocco Welsh, already talked about him going from Ohio State to Penn State at 184. Obviously, he's an NCAA finalist. That's a big pickup for Penn State. 184, TJ Stewart has been in the portal. I don't believe it's been announced where he's going, so wait and see on TJ. Dylan Fishback, another huge pickup. Goes from NC State to Ohio State. The Buckeyes had a very, very fruitful portal season, landing Dylan Fishback, Ethan Stiles, among others. That's a great pickup. Soldano, we talked about Rutgers to Oklahoma. And then you've also got Isaac Dean. I already mentioned him. Ryder to Iowa State. 197. How have I not said this man's name yet? Maybe the most impactful transfer of them all, AJ Ferrari, who I had in my doc as a 197 pounder when he was going to North Carolina, because it felt like that was probably where he's going to go. Now, he's not going to North Carolina. So if I'm breaking news to you, he's not going there. He's going to Nebraska, which is absolutely seismic for the team race, because maybe the biggest hole for Nebraska is now potentially filled by a national champion, AJ Ferrari. I believe he's going to go heavyweight. I think when you look at the fact that Camden McDaniel at 197 for Nebraska last year was an All-American, you keep him there, you let AJ go heavyweight, get as big as he can. I think he's a title contender. If you look at the other elite 97 or heavyweights, they're former 197 pounders too. And we know AJ knows how to get bigger. I think he's going to do really, really well for Nebraska. Then you got Rocky Elam, talked about him going to Iowa State. And then at heavyweight, you've got Hunter Katka, Virginia Tech to Rutgers. This is a good transfer when Katka's a really good wrestler, but he's not going to start over Jim Mullen. So this is a great landing spot for Katka. And David Zuba from Rider to Arizona State. And so that's it. I say that's it. That was a lot, actually. But start to finish, I'm saying names that are going to be wrestling in the round of 12, in the All-American rounds, wrestling for national titles potentially, changing the team race, right? That's how much change we're going to see this year in NCAA wrestling. That's how much of an impact these guys are going to have. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you want to just read all this and save yourself some trouble, we have a transfer tracker article here. Let me see if I can pull it up. It is called the 2025 NCAA D1 Wrestling Offseason Transfer Tracker. I think that's probably a good title for SEO. So check that out, and you can see all the names in the portal. And this was not an exhaustive list. There's still a ton of other guys that are in the transfer portal. I just went, those are the highlights. Those are the impact names. So check that out if you want to learn a little bit more. I want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these transfers? What are your thoughts on who is going to have the biggest impact for their team next year?